Right, good evening members, and this is a hybrid meeting. I'll first of all do the webcasting introduction. This meeting is to be webcast, and I would like to remind everyone that this meeting will be filmed live or recorded and uploaded to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings. If any public speakers on Teams do not wish to have their image captured, they should ensure that their video setting throughout the meeting is turned off and set to audio only. Members, as usual, I remind you to turn your microphones on when speaking and off when you finish. If we move straight on from there onto apologies for absence, I've had apologies from Councillor Smruti Patel and apologies for lateness from Councillor Matthews, and apologies for lateness or possible full apologies from Councillor Nigel Bedford. Have I missed anybody? Oh, yes, I've got them all. That's good. Any declarations of interest, members? I will be declaring a declaration of interest on item 11, since I am on the board of Terra Verde Services, and the business plan will be discussed, but obviously it's a non-pecuniary interest only. Good evening, Councillor Bedford. Any declarations of interest?
None, just in time.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. Okay, so we move on from there. We have the minutes of the last meeting. Can we take those as being agreed? Thank you. Any additional reports of portfolio holders? Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to put on record about the Women in Business event which happened in Buckhurst Hill a few weeks ago, which was a fantastic event in partnership with Essex County Council and the Federation of Small Businesses. It was really well attended, lots of female entrepreneurs and business people from across the district in attendance. It was great to see Councillor Brooks there as well, and also a special note of thanks to Councillor Smruti Patel, who in her old portfolio really pushed this event forward. Just also wanted to share the good news about the Rural Prosperity Grant funding, 94,000 of which has been agreed for the rural regeneration of a playground in Bumbles Green. This was a playground which was completely derelict and in need of a revamp. I think all there was a broken climbing frame. So Nazing Parish Council put this application in, which was kind of a competitive process, and were successful, so I'm really excited to see that work completed. But two good news stories to start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the Cabinet? No? Okay. We go on to item 6, public questions and requests to address the Cabinet. I take it there's none?
No, they're on to me later.
Thank you. Then we go to the report of overview and scrutiny. Councillor Baldwin online.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, from ONS. We held our first meeting on the 4th of July, and I'd like to thank Cabinet members for attending that meeting. We agreed on the work programme of ONS, and also the date of the joint meeting between the Cabinet and ONS on the draft budget was welcome, but we haven't yet fixed a date for that. Moving on to the PAS report. Now, I know that the PAS report is actually not coming to ONS, but it came to the working group on the 11th of July, and it's going to be decided by Cabinet on the 8th of August. ONS will request an update on the progress of the PAS changes later in the year. We will scrutinise that. Moving on slightly, the work programmes and in terms of reference were agreed for the other select committees, the placing and community scrutiny committees. It's encouraging to see reference made to the Community Scrutiny Committee this evening in the item 9 agenda. for this evening. I think I should mention is the TFL, because I know we do want to get and scrutinise TFL. We are trying to do that, and I believe Jane Gould has identified a contact, and we are waiting for a response from TFL. So that's where things stand at the moment with that. We've got forthcoming dedicated meetings, which will scrutinise Youth Council, the Health and Wellbeing Strategy, and the Community Safety Partnership. And the forward plan will be considered at each meeting, and the work programme will be adapted. So I think that's pretty much about it. I said I very much appreciate the relevant portfolio holders attending ONS, which does help us to do a better job of scrutiny. So I think that's the end of my input in my report there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Members, any comments on that report? No? Okay, can we note that report? Brilliant. Okay, we then move on to the first substantive item of the evening, which is item 8, the Productivity Plan 2024. If members remember, when we were doing the budget last year and we got the final government settlement, a requirement of the government settlement was that we produced a productivity plan to send on to government and, of course, also to display on our website. A helpful piece of work to be done, although duplicating some of other things that we've done at the same time. It is here and it's completed as required, but of course since then the government has changed. I'm not sure whether this will be a requirement of a future government, but the work has been done for this year and will be published if agreed this evening. Happy to take any questions, but I think it's really here for members to note. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Couple of points and some questions, I think. I thought it was a really interesting read, and to the credit of EFDC and your leadership, many of the changes that have been made in recent years were summarised there, most of which I could be supportive of. The one that I want to ask a few questions about tonight is on page 17, because despite my best efforts, I'm still not really getting a comprehensive answer on this. What we have done, the third one down, introduce a community lottery to mitigate the impact of reduction in community grants. Can I first of all say that I welcome the introduction of a community lottery? Not that I will ever buy a lottery ticket, because I don't. That's just not my faith. But I do welcome it, and I know local groups will benefit. And I think it went live for the first time this weekend, or maybe the previous weekend. My issue here is just a little bit about procedure. Despite contacting officers, despite contacting yourself, and quite understandably you passed it on to officers, I still haven't found out the decision-making process for the introduction of this. I would have thought, and I apologise if I'm wrong, and I've said that in all my emails, if I've missed it, the setting up of a community lottery should have been a member decision, should have been either a member decision or a portfolio holder decision that could have been subject to scrutiny and call-in. And despite numerous attempts, I've not been provided with any information that reminds me how that information was, how this decision was made. Yes, it's water under the bridge if it was just made, and making it a success is the most important thing. But I just think in terms of how decisions are made, it's important for us to be really clear how this decision was made. And as I say, if I missed it, I really apologise, but I try and keep on top of things, and I can't remember seeing a portfolio holder decision or a cabinet agenda item on this. Just before I finish on this, can I just say that I did bring this up at ONS in the last meeting, and I have to say the response of officers in terms of informing members about the lottery and how it was happening and so on, and being sent video links about the launch, has been absolutely superb since that meeting. But it still doesn't really deal with where was the decision made? And if I can be told that it was made by a portfolio holder and there was a formal decision, or it was discussed at Cabinet on an agenda, I'm fine. But I haven't been told that, despite asking. I don't know, it was either just after the elections or maybe even before the elections. So if I could just be told about that. And then I just have one other question, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Murray, I haven't got a full explanation for you this evening. I think it was, I believe and I understand that it was in conversation with the portfolio holder at that time. I'm not convinced there's been a normal process of a written portfolio holder report, but I will ask for it to be looked at further, and I'm happy to bring it back to scrutiny with an answer. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and this isn't part of my portfolio and hasn't been for a number of years. But what I would say is I remember it being discussed as part of the budget process when we were talking about potentially reducing the grant allocation. There was quite a discussion about how it could be replaced with a community lottery. So in terms of the formality of the report, I can't answer that because I wasn't the portfolio holder, but I certainly remember there being discussion in both scrutiny and cabinet meetings. Thank you.
So Councillor Murray, that's how I remember it, as being part of those budget conversations. So I'm just very mindful. I want to give you the fullest answer I can. Councillor Murray, you want to?
Yeah, just two final points then. Fully support this, don't get me wrong, and I want it to succeed, and it's brilliant. But it does involve a tender with an outside company to run it. So, yes, I don't pretend to understand all the rules and so on of the Constitution, but I would have thought that this personally should have been a formal portfolio holder decision, something of, when I say magnitude, of this public profile. But I'll leave it there. And I will just say this, Chairman, because I was going to say it at some stage of the meeting, because I find it interesting where the Cabinet members have sat. You've alluded that we've got a new government, and I was kind of aware of that. But I also know that your party is deciding which direction they're going. So can I ask, because members of the public will be interested, have members of the Cabinet moved to my right, or have they moved to your left?
Well, my Cabinet, as it always is, Councillor Murray, very centred in doing the best for Epping Forest. Yeah. Councillor Whitehouse.
Thanks. There are two things I wanted to sort of flag up in terms of the barriers preventing progress that government can help reduce or remove, which I thought was one of the more interesting bits of the ask. And there's something we've discussed in the past, which is the burden placed on the council in terms of very prescriptive requirements about where advertising is placed in a way that's not necessarily most effective in terms of getting eyeballs or getting responses, but is required by legislation. And I think that's something government could usefully look at, as indeed is the number of plans and reports and things it requests from a government, some of which are necessary and useful, for comparative purposes or to help monitor progress, and some of which I think take up officer time without necessarily any productive result. And people need to decide whether this plan's one of those or not. But I think both of those things can usefully be added.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. I think this report actually is really useful. And the reason I think it's useful, it was done with the best intentions of trying to make sure that councils are working to the highest level of productivity they can and as efficiently as they can, particularly in these times that are financially challenged. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. I agree there are some plans that really just aren't necessary. There's too much bureaucracy wherever you are these days. But this plan I thought was useful. Whether or not it'll be replicated again, not sure. But there's no right or wrong answer to this one. We had to produce it. We've produced it. It contains some really interesting information, which is very useful and helps us to focus on the future. There's always other things you could add in and do it slightly differently. Just mindful, Councillor Murray, you had another question.
It's been covered, I think, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Oh, hi, thanks very much, Chairman. Yeah, I noticed that I read the productivity report. There's quite a few mentions of ICT in that report, which is correct because ICT is an enabler of productivity. And it's mentioned, a few things are mentioned, sharing enabling ICT functions amongst other authorities is one of them. Does that mean, is our current IT strategy already aligned in that way, or will it change as a result of this productivity plan?
We've actually made good strides with our ICT plan. In fact, it's one of our shared service areas where we work in cooperation with Colchester, and we have a shared officer. And of course, that's the direction of travel in local government, is more shared services in order to drive, again, greater efficiency and productivity. But we're very much working closely with a number of authorities, particularly as part of the North Essex councils. And if devolution is coming down the line for the upper tier authorities, the importance to us is going to be around building the strength of those North Essex councils to make sure we get the best we can from devolution if it arrives. Thank you. Any other members, are you happy to agree this report for publication? Agreed? Thank you very much. If we then move on to item 9, which is the approach to housing energy efficiency with benefits, retrofits, sorry, even. Councillor Bedford.
Thank you, Leader. I think the report lays out quite a good approach to achieving better efficiency and retrofitting of our properties going forward. Obviously, we're guided by government legislation, especially around 2050, and our targets for SAP Band Cs by 2030. I think we have an officer support this evening, so if there's any further questions. I think Sergeant's not available, but I believe we've got cover. Oh, John. Okay. Any questions, please direct to John. I'm sure he's fully aware and he's up to speed on what's been going on in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman, and no questions, just a comment, mainly to thank John for all of his work around this. I was in discussions on this matter when I was the portfolio holder, and I think really at the core of this is actually saving our tenants money on their energy bills in the long term, and I think that's what's really important. Obviously, our ambitions with net zero remain the same, and it'd be interesting to see how the new government approaches this topic as well. But ultimately, our primary aim is to save our tenants money and make our homes as energy efficient as possible. So I think this is a good report and a good piece of work, and well done to John on his work here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say something similar. I thought the report and presentation that Mr Taphouse gave to the Recent Communities Committee, where this was scrutinised really carefully, was really good and useful. Thank you for that. So I don't have any questions because they were covered at that meeting. The only thing I would say, and this would be more for the housing, because this is going to be a 10 million net cost for the HRA, which I understand we probably don't have much alternative to do this, and this is a good thing to do. The only thing that I feel as a member that I'm not really aware of is the opportunity cost. Presumably the 10 million that we're putting into this programme is 10 million that could have been spent somewhere else. Maybe it's not quite as easy as that, but maybe a few million of that could have been spent elsewhere. So I'm not saying I don't support this, I'm just saying that I don't really understand what this is stopping us from doing, because the net cost of this is likely to be £10 million.
Thank you. Mr. John, would you like to answer that particular point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but I mean, if we are going to meet the government target, the way this is worked out, we've done it in the most cost-effective way. So we're using the most cost-effective measures to get to that SAP Band C. We can't really do it any cheaper. That's the point of it. So I think it is money we have to spend. We could spend more, but it won't be so effective.
But a good question. I mean, why I think that was such a good question is it's so hard when we have to prioritise our spend wherever it is these days. It's getting the right results, but of course this is a necessity as well as a benefit to the tenants in the properties. Can I just say before we go to the recommendations, how well I think the process worked for the select panel. Having been there the other evening to actually see the debate around this issue, it just shows the benefits of some of these policies going to select panels before they come to Cabinet to go for any questions. So I thought that was really helpful. And it's a system that seems to be working well. And thank you to the team as well for making this this report for us this evening. Anything else from yourself, Councillor Bedford? You happy to go to recommendations?
Happy to go to recommendations. I just like the way that Councillor Murray pointed out a few million here or a few million there. It seemed to just trip off the tongue. Thank you very much, Councillor Murray.
Members, can we agree to recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We then go on to item 10. Before I do, Councillor Matthews, any declarations of interest? I forgot to ask when you first came through.
No, no declarations of interest, and apologies for my lateness.
Not at all. Okay. Item 10 is a Regeneration and Place Investment Fund. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I very much wanted to make it in time for this because this is a report I'm very pleased to bring before Cabinet and members here this evening. Members will have seen the report. What we're looking to do is create an investment and regeneration reserve. We're looking to ring fence 1,020,000, the funding for the Fit for the Future reserve, and then to use this funding to progress the feasibility, the viability and achieve planning permission for the first tranche of place-based initiative schemes, initially at both Centric Parade, Loughton and Brooker Road, Waltham Abbey. This is the beginning of a journey. Obviously, we're looking to invest in the district and we're looking to promote work and promote employment, and this is the first stage of that. We need to ring fence this money so that we can look at where the feasibility is, of where we can best spend the money. And I want to stress one point, that this isn't a target. This is from my personal opinion on this, and I've stressed this to officers, this isn't a target that we've got to try and achieve. This is a maximum that we're going to ring fence, and we're going to assess the viability at every single stage so we can ensure that no money is wasted or invested into something that's not going to come to fruition. So that's something that I've stressed to officers already, that we assess the viability at every stage, and then hopefully we can see where we're going to go forward in the future, invested in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm also glad you made it, Councillor Matthews, because I thought I was going to have to give the report. But really welcome this report, and thank you for your detailed presentation there. I think this is absolutely the right thing to be doing. I think it's taking a measured and sensible approach, but looking at those areas where we hold the levers and we can regenerate. So really welcome and support this report.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks was just slightly quicker. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitbread. Councillor Matthews, obviously it was really interesting to read about the investment in, obviously as a Loughton councillor, you'd expect me to be particularly interested in Centric Parade. But I was rather hoping actually at this meeting we might hear a bit more about the plans for the regeneration of the Broadway. And I wondered if there's anything you'd like to say at this stage.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. I thought that one might get your attention. I haven't got any update on the Broadway at the moment for you, but I'm more than happy to go away, speak with officers and get an update, and I'll come back to you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This item is about regeneration and place, and completely agree with the general aims in terms of meeting housing need, regeneration and job provision. Those are three really crucial aims of the council going forward, and I think we would all agree with this. If I'm right, we're talking about the piece of land, and I'm obviously talking about Loughton here. Centric Parade was that piece of land and properties that was purchased by three members for about a gross cost of about £22 million. I know the real cost once income was taken into account is probably about 19 million. So I think I'm talking about the right location, aren't I? Yes. I just want to establish, is it clear that they're going to be working within these principles? I mean, we have got some successful businesses there, and I think they need to be safeguarded as much as possible. It's a really crucial part of the high road in terms of its frontage, so I don't think we want a pint squeezed into a quart pot, so to speak. And does that explain why Loughton has had to put up with quite a few empty shops in that parade in the ownership of the District Council, or have we made strenuous efforts to try and to let those, because we've had quite a few units there that have been empty for many, many months, if not almost since we've purchased it. So was that all part of the plan? And just to follow up with the Broadway, because half the Broadway is now in road and wall, believe it or not. We've crossed Chickwell Lane, so one half of the Broadway shopping parade is in the Roding ward, and the other half is in the Fairmead ward. There's already been a meeting with leaseholders. Next week there is a meeting of from the officers, a Teams meeting with all the residents of the Broadway shopping parade, and I'm assuming that will involve the businesses as well. So we must be very near to finalising what we intend doing there, because I've heard about contracts going out and they're wanting to make a start in the autumn. So we must be getting a report to Cabinet very soon, I would have thought. So if we could have information on that, I would be very grateful. But my questions as regards Centric Parade, what protection will there be for the successful businesses that are operating there already? Is there going to be an assurance that we're not going to try and overdevelop it? And does this help explain why we've had to put up with a relatively large number of empty shops for a long period of time?
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you for that, Councillor Murray. With regards to Broadway, I'll take that first. Same answer as Councillor Brooks. I'll get up to speed on that, and I'll come back to both of you to give you a thorough update on that. Back to Centric, efforts have been made to get these shops going and to get these vacancies filled. We're talking about ring fencing money. We're at the very, very early stage of what the plan is. This money is to establish the plan, to work through the process. This is to make sure that we've got sufficient funding so that we can go away and we can engage in all of the points that you've raised. That's all to come after this. This money is to ensure that we can do that process and we can do it effectively. But I personally wholeheartedly share your sentiments to Loughton, the importance of that section there of the High Street, and it's very, very important that we're protecting the local businesses that are doing well there. So I take all those points on board, and hopefully that covers that for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Murray and Councillor Matthews wouldn't know this yet because I've just had the information passed to me from officers that with regards to the Broadway there will be a all-member briefing and and then we'll get some information out shortly. Okay, members. Oh, Councillor Morris, apologies.
Yeah, I just had a similar question on the Brooker Road, Waltham Abbey. Is there going to be more detail? Do you know when there's going to be more detail available on that proposal?
Councillor Matthews.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Yes, again, it's the same process. We're looking to ring fence this money this evening so that we can begin that. And once that's secured, then we can develop the plans. I can then come back. We can engage in the conversation. Brooker Road is an interesting one because we've already got a project just further down the road at Cartersfield, and that's going very, very well. Things are very positive on that. So if that's anything to go by, then I'm very confident that Brooker Road will be a successful project in the future. So as I say, at this stage, we're very much just looking to ring fence that money so we can begin the process. And as I said, I'd just reiterate that it's my absolute commitment that we will assess the viability at every single stage. I don't want to be spending money on a project that's not going to come to fruition. So the moment that we assess that viability, if there's any doubt, then we put the brakes on the spending until we know exactly what we're going to go with there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matthews. Members, you've got the recommendations as set out. Can we take those as being agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Members, we then move on to the Terra Verde Services Business Plan. I would say before we get underway on this, part of the one of the appendixes in private part of the paper. Therefore, if we stray into that, we will have to go into private session, and we'll take it to the end. But Councillor Balcom, let's try and keep this into public session if we can.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I would like to say that waste collection is a vital service, and it's clear that there have been challenges in the past which have affected our residents. The partnership offers EFDC a greater flexibility and gives the control back to EFDC. The business plan sets out a strategic approach set for Epping Forest District Council newly created local authority trading company, TVS or Terra Verde Services, as it prepares to deliver two key environmental services, recycling and waste collection, and the street cleansing to residents of the Epping Forest District Council from the 4th of November. The business plan begins by introducing TVS Limited and why the council's decided to adopt this delivery model after having outsourced these services for 30 years. The business plan continues by identifying the vision and values of TVS Limited and how they align closely with those of the shareholder Epping Forest District Council. It also identifies the key objects for TVS and the services that will be delivered back to the council, with a strong emphasis on quality of delivery and value for money. These services will be delivered within the administrative boundary of Epping Forest District Council initially, but we will look outwards for other business opportunities at the appropriate time. The plan describes the business model adopted by the company to commence services on the 4th of November 24. There is an explanation around the service delivery approach and the impact of using a new depot facility. The rationale for using externally appointed specialist support services is explained, and how this approach allows the council's flexibility to explore potential synergies and economics of the scale across its portfolio of the wholly owned companies. Sorry, I had another operation this morning.
Thank you very much, Councillor Balcom. Members, any questions? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. Another very important item on your agenda tonight. I welcome this report. It's obviously the service in terms of affecting every resident, so we have to get it right. This business plan, on my reading of it, suggests that we are going to do that, and that won't be that will be everything to do with the efforts of the portfolio holder and the officer that's here tonight, and I want to pass on my thanks to them. I do just want to make a couple of other comments. I agree with that Epping Forest District Council should be the 100% shareholder, so I would be supporting their recommendation tonight. And it's interesting how things come around full circle, because I remember the very, very heated meeting 30 years ago, and this gallery was full of our workers who were far from happy of privatisation, and that was one of the most heated meetings we've ever had. So it's nice to return this in-house, even if it's as a arm's length company. I think the portfolio holder is absolutely right. We concentrate on getting our area right and the service up and running before we look for providing services for other authorities or other opportunities in the private sector, but that is something for the future. I think one other question I wanted to make, and one other point I wanted to make, and then one question. In terms of what we're getting at the moment, my experience now as a Loughton councillor is the biggest area that we need to improve upon when we're delivering the service is the street cleansing in residential streets. The main streets and the high roads seem okay, but the area where I get most complaints are in residential streets that aren't on any kind of regular cycle. And I think that is an area that we need to look as if we can improve. And then, unless I've missed it, though I perhaps wouldn't expect it in the business plan, what's going to be our view as a solely owned company by EFDC in terms of union recognition? You'll remember, Chairman, that one of the things that I'm deeply unhappy about as regards Qualis is almost their badge of honour that they don't recognise trade unions, and they've got no intention of doing so. They haven't quite said that, but my interpretation of what they've said is that they're not going to. So what is the position of this company in terms of union recognition for the workforce?
Councillor Balcombe.
Thank you for that, Councillor Murray. I agree with you. We do have problems with some of our residential streets cleaning. I'm going to ask James if he's got an update on that and tell you where we are at the current time.
Yeah, it's something that under TVS that we recognise that's an area of improvement. I think the key is kind of as part of this business plan, the vision and values and how the workforce are treated and how the service is managed. So I know from conversations with Dave Ward, who's the interim managing director of TVS Limited, it's his expectations that the crews will be supervised by supervisors, not sat behind a desk. They will be out there on the street, and that's so the service will be monitored more closely. Also, with the white space software system we have for collections and street cleansing, we have live real-time data to monitor things and be able to, if things are going astray, to react to improve them a lot quicker.
Thank you, James. The unions, what was the final outcome on that?
Do you want me to come in? Yeah. So obviously, from a union recognition point of view, the board is looking at preparing that statement at the moment. So we will be in touch soon, Councillor Murray. But I think you'll be in agreement with how the board is thinking.
Okay, this would be a vote in favour of union recognition. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Bedford.
Thank you. I wonder if I might just ask a quick question. Under the current scheme with Biffa, when like the containers have been down the road, picked up rubbish, occasionally they drop a bag or drop glass, etc. And I know the instruction is that they're supposed to pick that up as they go through, but I quite often get complaints from a few residents who say they've driven off and they've left the rubbish there. Under the current scheme, a phone call's made to Biffa and Biffa sends someone out to collect it. Is that going to be the current situation that we're going to carry forward with the new agreement?
Thank you, Councillor Bedford. First of all, yes, it is a problem, and each of our Biffa freighters are equipped with a special bin underneath the lorry containing brooms and etc. We've already had talks about this, and James will probably come in on this in a minute. One of the things we've been looking at is possibly the managers following around with their vans and clearing up and noticing it. Have you got anything else you want to add to that, James?
I think first and foremost, we want the crews, if there is any spillage after collections, it's the responsibility of the crews to collect it. So we are kind of finalising the specification, and we made a presentation to the TVS's most recent board meeting with a set of service standards that are being developed, and they will have things like responsibilities of the crew and spillage. These service standards will also form part of toolbox talks in the mornings to the operatives to ensure they're fully aware of their responsibilities and they carry out. Where there is the odd occasion the spillage is left, it will be the process that, as Councillor Balcombe has said, a supervisor will be sent out there to clear it out as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah, 3 questions, if I may. I mean, there's reference in here to the sort of governance agreement and shareholders agreement, which I did have a look for, and I couldn't. Can someone tell us where that and who that was agreed? Because it would be useful to see the copy of that. The other thing was to clarify, am I right in thinking that the customer care and the contact centre arrangements will remain as they are, you know, through the council rather than directly to TVS? And the third was a query about the agency costs, which are mentioned, a sort of generic one, which it seems to suggest are to cover both sickness absence and annual leave absence. I mean, given that annual leave ought to be predictable, even if sickness leave isn't, you know, why do we not employ staff to cover annual leave and rota people accordingly?
James.
Councillor Whitehouse, yeah, you're correct in terms of customer contact is EFDC, so residents will call the same number as the arrangement now. In terms of the agency costs that are in there are based on BIFA's financials, so they're based on the service that and workforce they have. So obviously it's a budget estimate at this stage based on what Dave Ward believes he will need. So it does cover holiday time and staff sickness, and also as part of the mobilisation, we won't, because of the staff being stupid across, we won't know until day one how many come across. Therefore, we need to have 1 or 2 agency companies on standby to provide staff at short notice and that. But I think over time, the plan will be to kind of keep agency costs at a minimum.
Thank you. On the shareholder agreement, Councillor Whitehouse, we will issue that, put that up shortly, but we're just waiting for that advice. So that will be done. Members, everyone's had an opportunity to ask questions. Such an important part of what we do as a council is collecting waste. Can I just say, first of all, thank you to the officer team and to Councillor Balcombe, who have put an enormous effort into making sure that the waste service has been provided much better over the past year. They've done a superb job, but also to thank them for all the hard work that's going into preparing the new company, making sure the lorries are in place, making sure that the depot is making good progress. This is going to take up an awful lot of time this year, and I'm delighted that Councillor Balcombe has taken on the challenge of waste alongside the officer team, James, Dave and everyone else and everyone who's been involved, because this is going to be an enormous task in bringing this to an arm's length company wholly owned by Epping Forest. But I'm sure and confident it's the right thing to do, and I've seen the best planning put in place. So thank you again to everybody. We will continue to bring reports to Cabinet on a regular basis. But obviously there is a lot to be done before the 4th of November. Members, you've got the recommendations before you. Can we agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 12 is the quarterly monitoring report, 6-month transitional period to 31st of March 24. Councillor Matthews again.
Thank you, Chair. A simple report this evening for members. One recommendation, just to consider the content of the report and with particular emphasis on the ongoing monitoring actions required. Those that have read the report and read my previous report will note that they're very similar. The pleasing thing for me was there was no surprises. Everything we predicted and budgeted for, things were slightly better than budgeted. Nothing to get too excited about, but slightly better than budgeted. So that's the main thing. There was no surprises. And I will just share a thought I had earlier on this, because I was just reflecting on this report and on our current situation on the family farm, and it made me realise how similar Qualis is to a farming business, in the sense that we've spent all this money all year trying to establish this crop, and there's bumps and hurdles across the road, and we spend additional money that we didn't plan for, then we get that back in another friend, and then it comes to the end, and then the harvest starts, and then that is when we can start seeing the fruits of our labour. And the hardest time of any farming business is that point just before harvest, just when you've had all the costs go out, but you're yet to start that harvest. And I believe we're very much at that position with Qualis. When we look at the numbers, we see where we've spent the money, and we can see that we're starting to generate that revenue. And I'm very hopeful and confident that we will have a fruitful harvest. Thank you.
Very good. Members of the Cabinet, any questions? No? Councillor Murray, are we getting ready for Harvest Festival?
But I think that's a lovely analogy, because I love Harvest Festival and the traditional hymns. The only problem is that not all harvests are successfully gathered in, because there is such thing as blight and locust destruction, but I'm sure that's not going to happen in this case.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Whitehouse, and then I'll...
Yeah, just to be a bit more specific about the harvest. Obviously, this report takes up to the end of March, and it talks about the revenue expected from Springwood Grove and the second site. And we're now up to June, and I think one of the previous reports did talk about that revenue, that selling, happening in spring, summer this year. So, will the next quarterly update show the first of those sales coming through?
Councillor Matthews.
Yes, I believe if the timing's right, we're going to see the first set of sales. At Spring Grove, we're now the second one. Correction, it'll be the one after that. It will fall just slightly after that, so it'll be the second report. My next report will show probably still pre the sales coming in, and then it will hopefully be that next report. But sales are progressing. Interest is very much high. I have my weekly meetings with the Qualis team and getting positive feedback. Obviously, the building works are continuing, but interest is very high, and some units are starting to move already, so we're very pleased with that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Oh, hi, thanks very much. Yeah, so I had a question about the monitoring actions that were in the report from the last meeting. They were quite specific. I mean, they were going to review and improve the commercial portfolio book value, progress on completion in Springwood Grove, sales values for completed developments, and a revised business plan. Is there any sort of specific feedback on how that monitoring has gone, and are there any actions coming out of the monitoring?
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morris. Yes, I mean, those points that we set out, we've been carrying out that monitoring. A lot of discussion is done back and forth. Qualis obviously providing us with the numbers to see, and everything's on track. So we haven't had to change that at all. I haven't had to introduce additional measures or anything. So I'm quite content with how things are at the moment. The numbers are there to support the increase of value. So yeah, it's all there within the report to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, knowing that we're getting ready for the harvest, which I think is brilliant for any business. I don't know how we're going to quite do that for the waste contract, Ray, but I'm sure we'll find an analogy for that as well. Taking all that into account, can we agree this monitoring report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, okay, we're going to have to move into private session, so I'm going to read the following statement regards to the exclusion of public and press, to consider whether under section 100 in brackets A in brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press should be excluded from the meeting for the items of business set out below on grounds that they will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the following paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act as amended, or are confidential under Section 100 in brackets A in brackets 2. Members, can we agree to go into private session? Okay. Are we switched off? Brilliant.